Python fundamentals. The goal of this program was to at least give you a direction of why Python is the in thing and some of the use cases of Python. Throughout the course of these lectures, we've had a couple of things talking about some of the basics of Python, how our computer understands Python code. We talked about some of the prerequisites. You need a Python interpreter, as well as you need a code editor where you actually write your code. We also talked about syntax and semantics. Syntaxes are the rules you have to follow in Python, while semantics is the meaning that comes from your Python expression. We spoke about variables, and we talked about flow control yesterday. Flow control allows you to branch in, and we saw the powerful use case of flow control when you want to take decisions. Went further, talk about conditional operators and Boolean operators. Look at the if statement, look at the different variants, if, else, if, else statements. We talked about loops. Loops, we use loops when you are trying to repeat a block of code over and over and over again. We spoke about two types of loops. We spoke about the for loop, where we trace over an iterable over a fixed number of times. We talked about while loops, where we evaluate the code while the condition is still true. And then we spoke about functions. So, and we ended with functions yesterday. So functions typically allow us to run a particular piece of code as many times as we want to run it. So we don't have to repeat the code, writing the code. And look at how to define functions. The keyword for function is definitions. Function takes in inputs. It then runs a block of code and returns, you can choose to return something or choose not to return anything. When you want to call a function, you typically would a function this way. So the name of the function and then the input. So that's all we've done so far. And pretty much these are the building blocks of Python. So today we are just going to progress talking about modules, and then we'll go into some practical use cases of Python. So before we go into today's lectures, do we have any question from participants? Do we have any question? Probably tried out any of the Python code from yesterday and you had a challenge. Do we have any question? Okay. I'll take that as a consensus. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about modules. So before going to modules, I want to do a few Python codes on function, trying to demonstrate some functions before we go ahead with modules. So I'll go back to my VS Code. Typically, we start with file. We open the folder we are working with. So all of my codes for this class I've installed in SP61. Codes I'm using today are in practical. So I can just say select folder. And that's where we are. So today we'll just do a brief run through of functions. Like I said, functions allow you to repeat the block of code as many times as you want without having to write the code. As previously said, a function starts with the keyword def, then the name of the function, then the variable or the inputs into the function. Then we run a piece of code, a block of code. This is the block of code that is indented. And then we return a value. So here I have two functions. The first one I called sum. So sum will take a list of numbers and then it will iterate over those numbers and sum it up and return the sum back to the calling function. The second one is a function that averages a list of numbers. So it takes a list of numbers, then we find the average. Average is simply the sum for the total number of numbers. So just to demonstrate, so you look at, to call a function, like I said, you write the name of the function, put a bracket, and then the input into the function. So if I uncomment this, and I press, and I run this code, so this code is saved in lecture underscore function .py. You can see I put in a list of numbers 1 and 2. When I sum 1 and 2 together, it gives me 3. I put a list of 4 and 8, and I'm looking for the average, it gives me 6. I can put any variable I want to put. And doing that, I can see how it evaluates differently. So 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 4 gives me 11. So I can change the inputs, and you can see how powerful functions are. So you don't have to write a particular piece of code. So that's the use case of functions. So functions are extremely important. You can just wrap your codes in function, and you can constantly call your codes. So that's all about functions. And I don't know whether we have any question up until this point before we continue. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to beat time because we are far behind. The next thing we'll be looking at is models. So models are simply Python files that have lots of functions, variables that you can call from another function. So take, for example, this function that we have here. We have sum, we have average, and we save it as under lec function.py. That's a Python file. I can use these functions by calling them. You can see if I do import the name of the file, I can basically use the function from the previous file. So look at sum and average. Here, I want to find the sum of two numbers, and I know I have a file that has the function defined. I can simply import the name of that file and then call the function I'm looking for. This is called a module. So a module is basically a Python file that has functions, classes that can be called upon by another Python file. So if I am to run this code, Python underscore let function .py, sorry, models you can see it would evaluate this function calling this model leg function, and I can definitely change the input to it, and similar thing will occur as previously in the function. You can see it basically uses the function in this module. So modules are very, very powerful in Python. There are several ways of calling modules. The very first one, you can just call the name of the file, and then you put this dot notation, the exact function you're looking for. So take, for example, if I were to call the average function from the LEC function module, all I just have to do is name of the file, then put the average function here. Run this code, you can see it evaluates this expression with the average function. So this is not the only way to call modules. You can call modules also. You can call modules and then give them specific names. Take, for example, this leg function, that's the name of that file. I can give it another name, sp. So instead of putting leg function dot sum, I can just put spe dot sum, and automatically it will evaluate this function from this module. You can obviously try the average function. So if you run this code, you can see it evaluates these two functions picking from this module leg function. We also have a third way of calling modules. If we want to call specific functions in the module, you can use the keyword from the name of the module, import the very function we want to use in the module. From the module name, import the exact function we want to use. In this case, we can write the name of the function directly. We don't have to put leg function dot sum. And in this very, very code, it's only importing the sum function. It does not import the average function. So we're very specific about the functions we want to use herein. So these are the three ways we can actually import a module to our Python environment. So you can either use import the name of the function, import the name of the function and rename the function. You can also call a specific function from a module. These are the three basic ways you can actually get modules. You can import modules. So modules, we have a lot of modules that people have written. This one I just used to explain to you what modules are. In fact, Python is replete of so many modules, you can't even count. Very, very many modules. You can see this math module, I didn't write it. It's a Python module. It enables us to mathematical computation. If I'm to run this code, so this is next module 4, the py. You can see this evaluates the cosine of 5. That evaluates the square root of 4. So the developer of this math module, they have extensive codes that evaluate mathematical online, and you can see all the functions within the module. The arc course, the arc cosine, the arcsine, arcsine, you have seal, you have your typical combination, you have cosh, a lot of mathematical functions that these developers are actually done behind the hood. You can even see the Euler expression. You can even have an expression for infinity. You have an expression for not a number, pi, and tau, as the case may be. So if you even check online, list of Python models, you can see we have so many of them, and the use cases are quite different. So very, very different list of Python models. So you can look at list of Python models. Just so this is the type of model. This is a list of Python model. Okay, Python model index. Look at example of Python models. There are so many. Typically, you don't have all installed on your computer. You basically have to install them as you go. So to find the list of Python modules installed on your computer, you can simply go to your command line prompt, and you can use the command pip list. So this will list all the installed Python packages or modules in your environment. So you can see them. All I have within this Python environment. If I had to use my Anaconda, you see I have more Python modules here, a lot more. So basically, Python superpower comes from modules because people are really contributed. So you don't have to write your code from scratch. You just need to look for the module that does what you are looking for. So I don't know whether we have any question before we move ahead. Any question?
No questions. You can continue. I mean, if anybody has any question, you can speak up.
Okay. So so far we've spoken about for most of our codes, we're interacting with our codes through the command line. And I know there are questions like, oh, all the coding I've learned in school, they've always been through command line, but we know our computers are made of codes. So how do we visualize and everything? So we'll be talking a bit about those today. But before we do that, we need to talk about files. So files, you have different type of files. You have your Excel files, you have your text files, and the like. So we have Python modules that actually help you. Inbuilt function that actually helps you with working with files. So for text files, we have the open command that can allow you open a text file, and you can read the contents of the text file. And you have ones that can actually help you write to a text file. So probably you want to write to a text file, and yeah, so basically you can read, you can write. So let's take, for example, this file example.txt. You can check the file. So it says, dear everyone, I'm writing Python code. Thank you. So assuming I want to open this file and read its content, how do I do that on Python? So that's quite easy. You can see you can use the open command. So this open command, the name of the file, you read the file. In this case, I want to just print what's in the file. So I can just comment this line of code. Comment this line of code, and then I can run the code to see what happens. So 5A. You can see it prints the content of the file into my command line. So dear everyone, I'm writing Python code. So that's one way. So you can if you have a large amount of text file and you want to operate on the content of it, you can actually import it to Python environment, do all your manipulations with it, then send it back. Or you can do manipulations and then send to another application. It's very, very possible with Python. So I'm going to comment this now and we're working with write. So this is to read the file. So writing to files, we use just take note of the keywords. So to read, we use letter R. To write to a file, we use letter W. So Ctrl S. If I run this, so for example, I want to open output file and then write to it. If output file does not exist already, you're going to create an output file and then write this particular expression into it. So if you check the left-hand side, we don't have any file called output file. But once I run this code, it's going to create output file for me. Currently, there's no output file here. Once I run the code, you see output file. So again, check, it has created output.txt. And if I open it, you can see I'm making progress in Python. Exactly what is written here. I'm making progress with Python. Let's say if I write, I'm making progress with Python 1, and I run this code again. Let's see what happens. Let's go back. You can see, wow, what happened? It basically replaced our string with the new string. Or maybe it actually replaced, let's change to something very different from this. Let's say Python is an interesting programming language. Okay, so if I run this, I check the output file, you see, it basically deleted whatever existed on that file and then replaced it with my new string. But that's not the case we want to do in all instances. So that's not, we can now use what you call the append command. Just by you're writing to the file, you are still, instead of deleting what exists within the file, you are just appending your new entry into the file. So if I open this output file, you can see, unlike the keyword, the key letter W that replaces the existing content with the new content. This does not. What this does is it just basically adds the new content to a new line in the file. So that's working with strings. I mean, working with text files. If anyone has any question, you can shoot on the text on the chat box, or you can just stop me so we can have like a recap. Okay. So another thing we'll be working on, that type of file we'll be working with today, is Excel files. So for Excel files, we'll be using the OpenPyXL module. So typically what you can do, Google is your friend, you just open the PyXL module. Python has a very, very rich documentation, and you can see what the module can do for you. So they'll tell you is a Python library that reads, writes Excel 2010 and the likes. So the documentation is actually very, very useful. You have examples, how to install this module. Eventually, you don't have it on your computer. You can just do pip install this. I'll just try that now, even though I have it on my computer, so we can just have a feel. So you might have to install modules as you progress with your Python. You can set requirements satisfied, open Excel and see if I'm already satisfied. So I can just leave that so we can focus on our code. So to create a blank workbook, this is a command, and then you can save the name of the file, and that's created. So if I run this code, Python module 5, you can see create sample. If I go to SP61 practical, I can see a file was just created, an Excel file, and the file is empty. Nothing is in the file. So let's progress. Let's see more functions on OpenPyXL. Obviously, you can write to a PySL. You can basically do anything you can do on Excel using this OpenPyXL. It basically works like magic. So what you just need to do is learn the commands. Just go check the documents, the documentation, and you can see how to do all of the tricks in Excel. So in this case, we are trying to assign variables to cells. You know, in Excel, your cells are normally defined as A1, A2, B1, just like that. And the powerful thing with Python, you can choose to iterate over these sheets, over these cell numbers and the likes. So we run the code. So I want to put first name in cell A1 of the worksheet sheet. I want to put last name in A2. I want to put else thing in B1, and I want to put equal in B2. So running this code, I go back, I check sample. Wow, sample has been updated. So it now has first name, last name, and the like. So as not to burn our time, I would leave you to tinker with it. Just tinker with the commands that are there. And it has a very rich documentation. It tells you how to hello? Sorry, I had a network break. I don't know where I got lost. If someone can remind me where I was breaking transmission.
Yeah, no, we lost you just when you finish showing the Excel example.
Okay, okay, thank you very much. So all of this you can see codes on how to do a bar chart, working with the axis, so you can basically customize as much as you want to customize using OpenPyXL. So just for you to pick documentation and check for what you want to do. That's how easy it is. So the next we'll be talking about, I'll project again. We've spoken about models. We've spoken about working with files. We spoke first about text files. Now we talked about Excel files. Now, one thing that would catch our fancy, we said Python has application everywhere. Python is used for web. Python is used for machine learning. Python is used for ethical hacking. Python has application into UI and a host of all of that. While we might not be able to cover everything in these 6 hours, I just want us to have a feel of web programming with Python. So that's the basics of what a web application is. So a web application simply is a piece of code running on somebody's machine. All of the codes we've been running with command line. It's just basically a web application is just like codes we've been running ever since in somebody's machine. Sometimes those machines are very, very powerful that allows anybody from the world to actually access the application. So examples, you have your intranet applications that are only available within your organization. Those applications are being run in the server room in your organization. But bigger applications like Facebook, they have much larger computers that actually run this application. So looking at it, the web application simply is something run on someone's computer. It can even be your own computer. Then the other side to it is someone trying to access that your application. So on this left-hand side, we call this the client side. Typically, you can access the web application through a browser, through a mobile app, or even an application installed on your computer. So you just access it, and you do that through a request. So you make a request, and then the server gives a response. So while Python is not very big on the client side, but it has some functions that allow you to access the client side. So just to continue, if we are trying to interface with the web applications using Python, you can use the module called request. So request allows you to interface with the client side. Then if you want to actually run a web application on your server using Python, you have another module called Flask. So Flask allows you to basically run a web application on your machine. The machine being can be a server farm, the machine being your personal computer. You can actually have a web application. And if it's hosted on the internet, anybody from around the world can actually have access to your web application. So now on the client side, there are basically two ways we can have access to the client side. Number one is through what we call web scraping, where you actually have access to the contents of a web page, word for word. I'll give you an example. So let's say I want to go to google.com. So I'm going to google.com. This is the Google homepage. And I want to have access to all of these Google search. I'm feeling lucky, Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba. It could be even a more complex website, maybe like a Jumia website. So you want to access Jumia foods or and the likes. If you do inspect, you can basically see what were the pieces of components that I was using creating this website. Say for example, I want to inspect Google itself. You can see Google, the picture, that's this image you see here. So what's the makeup of all of these things? So you can actually have access to everything on the web page. And when you have access to it, you have two models that are very useful. You have the first one is Beautiful Soup. Beautiful Soup basically like a test based model that allows you to sift through all of these chaotic text and get what you're looking for. So you are looking for this Google image, it can actually help you get it because everything you see here is just um, variables, data type that we talked about. You can see equal operation, you can see a string, just like that. So you can basically have access to the contents of the web page through web scripting. So there are two very powerful tools, Beautiful Soup and Selenium, just to check the modules and see how to use them. Beautiful Soup. So this is Beautiful Soup. So you have a very documentation how to go about it, how to get the tags. So that's something that you should check. I won't spend much time here. The other way we can actually talk to a web application on the client side is through what you call APIs. So APIs are application programming interfaces. They are just a way for machines to communicate with machines. So if I want to communicate with Google machine, my computer can actually have access to Google machine in a way they will understand. So different websites can offer APIs. I can go to, let's say, Gmail API, and you can see with Gmail API, you can do a couple of things. You can send emails and the likes. You can say read and send messages, message draft and the likes. So you can just go read documentation. So typically they will have it in different programming languages. Then they'll give you they, they won't give you how you write the codes. So you don't have to look for you don't have to do your own programming from bottom up. You already have a guide on what to do. So here we'll be implementing one API call. It's just to send a text message. So Twilio, it's an application that allows you to send SMS. It takes in basically it takes in phone number of the person, and irrespective of where you are, it can actually send you a text message. So I can go to Twilio website. So just to explain Twilio, I can go to Twilio website, and you can see that it has a very robust API that you can just use to send SMS to a phone number. And it also has, although it is paid for, you can try your hands on it with the free tier. So it has a free tier that allows you to send a specific number of SMS. Sorry for the slow network. I don't know why this is slow today. But you can, while it's loading, you can go to the code. So this is typically how the Twilio API works. It basically, you call the Twilio module. So you have to install the Twilio module. Then from the Twilio module, you call client.message.create. So it takes in client.message.create to the phone number, from the phone number and then the body of the message that you want to send across. So one thing I just wanted to note here, if you are using free tier, Twilio will automatically assign you a phone number. But if you are using the paid version, you can actually customize your number or the information you want it to appear on your recipient's device. So in this code, I want to send hello, name of a person. It was nice seeing you in Python class. Kind regards. So now the phone number here is actually my mobile number. I wrote a function. So if you look here, you can see I encoded all of this as a function. So we have a function SMS client that takes in the name of a person and the phone number, and then it returns like a function that returns nothing. So looking at it, this is actually what Twilio requests for. I just wrapped it in a function so I can always call this SMS client. So I'll try and send a Twilio message now to my mobile device. But before I do that, I want to probably project so we can see it in action. If my phone will project to my computer. Okay, that actually did. Okay. Then, sorry, I'm trying to go back to my home page. Okay. On my device. Okay. So let's say I run this code. So this is the code module 7. So module 7. So the code has executed. Oh, it's actually sent now. I don't know, my projection stopped. But just to have a feel. So you can see the Twilio message has arrived and it says, if you would, hello, if you would, it was nice seeing you in class today. So the message was delivered, and you can look at the phone number 18087364120. That's the number assigned to me by Twilio. So these are use cases for Python. You can create a Python program that automatically emails and sends text messages. So this is still on the client side. So going further, this also is another API from 7timer. So you can check 7timer. It's a weather forecast web-based application that has a very powerful API. So it takes in the location of the person. So I'm in Lagos, and it can give you the 7 days weather forecast for Lagos. You can say for the 29th, 30, 31, November 1, November 2, up to November 6. That's what a human will see. But what will our computer see? So you have what you call APIs here. So I can open one of these APIs and see what actually can my computer see. You can see all it just seeing is data. It's saying, oh, the cloud cover, the precipitation, amount of precipitation, the temperature at 2 meters, the wind value. So we have wind direction, we have the wind speed, the weather is cloudy. So you can see all of these that we see here in graphics are here in the form of data. And obviously, these are data types that are not new to Python. This here is a dictionary. This is a key. This is a value. The key is in a string. The value is an integer. So we can actually write a Python code. So in this instance, I wanted to get the wind speed for my location. So my latitude, my longitude. I call the URL. This is exactly the URL. Call the URL. And then you perform. Obviously, you have to select the data you need. For me, I wanted just the wind speed and the wind direction. So I had to perform dictionary operations on that data. And then I can return my value. So let me run the code so you can see the beauty of it. So you can see I have the wind speed, the wind direction for 2022, October 29th, 2022, October 30, so 7 days prediction, forecast for wind speed, for wind direction. I can do that for rain as well as for sun. So it does depend on what I want. So this is one of the ways Python interacts with a web application. In real time, you can actually get data from web applications. So do we have any question at this juncture? Okay. So assuming I was operating a wind farm and I need to know the amount of wind that will be projected, so I can probably give my customers, so okay, this is my projected production of electricity over the course of the next 7 days. I can create a web-based application that sends SMS to me. So it takes the from the 7timer API, you can get the wind speed and wind direction, and then you can send a text message to me. So all I need to do is run this code. So Now I'm taking SMSing the clients, which I did here from module 7. This function I created here to send me a text message. Then I also called this module that goes into 7timer, calls the API, then it returns the value from the wind function as a message. So, sorry, I want to send the wind speed and wind direction to my mobile number. So, just as we did before, we run the code. Okay, so it's saying it has sent a message. So let's look at the message as sent by Twilio. We are still using Twilio. Twilio. So Twilio just sent a message, and you can see what it's sending the wind speed and the wind direction. The wind speed and the wind direction. You can see that it's the same thing that was printed on our screen. Same thing printed on our screen is what Twilio is sending as SMS to my mobile number. So those are the ways you can actually, yes.
Sorry, is there a way we can also get an SMS delivery reports, maybe on our script, so to show that the message was actually delivered?
If you want me to use your mobile number, very fine. I can do that.
No. I mean on the script. So return back that the message was actually delivered on the script.
Oh, so Twilio does not have that feedback. You don't have that feedback. What Twilio can do for you, if it's successful, if Twilio is able to send it successfully, okay, let me show you something on. So let me show you something on the command line. Say, for example, let me go back to my SMS client, which is here. So SMS client. So, Twilio gave me this number. If I assume, let's say I remove this number, for example, how will I know that my message was not delivered? So let me run the code again. See, it brought out an error. It says a 21606 error. If it was not successfully delivered, it's going to give you an error. It said unable to create record if the phone number is not a valid phone number. So if Twilio is able to send your message, you won't get any error. But if Twilio has any problem, maybe authentication with your account, your phone number is wrong, or something is wrong, you will definitely get an error message from Twilio. So I don't know whether that suffices as an answer to the question.
Yeah, but that one is the from account and number. If the toll number is wrong or inactive, okay, you said that that's what looking at, so that you are rest assured that whatever messages you have generated, your customers or whoever your target customers, they have received it. It's okay, that's fine. It's okay, it's cool. Thanks.
Okay. So let me just put the 0 back because we use these models later in the course. Okay. So we've interfaced extensively with the front end of our application using APIs, and we talked about web scraping. Let's now go further with our talk on web applications. So now to the back end, where Python has more usefulness, because on the front end, most of your front end applications are usually created with actually created, not usually, are created with HTML, JavaScript, CSS. It's at the back end that the logic behind what you do is done by Python. And Python has a module called Flask. Flask helps you with web development. So I will just quickly go to the Flask page, Flask Python. So you can look at the documentation for Flask. Like I said, Python has a very, very rich documentation. Very, 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 very rich documentation. Very rich documentation. So you can see how to set up your Flask environment. So project layout, blueprint values, what you call templates, and the likes. So you can, at your free time, you can look at it. Let's just implement a few back-end Python codes. So here, to implement a Python web app as a server, now we are going to the server side. To implement it, Flask just needs 3 commands. You have to import the Flask module. You have to initialize the Flask application, and then this is to end the application. So if I run Python app1.py, it says it's serving the Flask app, and it says the Flask app can be reached from this link. So I open the link, it opens on my browser. I say, but link not found. URL was not found on the server. Wow, what is wrong? We go over it again. I just actually started the application. It's not even going anywhere. There are no links to any directory, or what we call, there are no links at all. So I'll stop this Flask application, Ctrl C to stop the application, and I'll go to number 2. So looking at number 2, the same pattern. I import Flask, then I initialize the Flask application, and then the final stop. But here I've also done routes. So once it gets to the home page, it should do something. Once it gets
sorry.
to,
Sorry, what does that first line, what does it mean, the Flask comma request? Is that to also bring in a request function or what?
Yes, so Flask has, in the Flask module, you also have the request function.
Okay, okay.
Yes, very good question. We have from Flask, we are importing Flask. So in this case, the only function we are using here is Flask, but you see what we use the request function as well. Request. So if I am to run this application, you can see I click on the link. It took me to my web page. And this web page, all I'm printing here is just index page. I can design this page as much as I want to design it using HTML and CSS. All Python cares about is the backend logic. And you can look at, once you call the link, say someone from somewhere is trying to access the web application, you can see the status. Let me just put it over here. Probably we can have a feel. I want to try and bring the command line and the sorry. Okay, this is better. Okay, command line and then our browser. So once it's successful, you can see once I hit the server, you can see it's saying the server was hit and it gives me a successful message. The 200 code in HTML stands for successful. You can check that. HTML codes. So sometimes when you go to your browser, you can see code, let me code 200. So it's the HTTP success. You can also have other HTTP codes. I want to try and get a list of all the codes. Yes, status code. So I should return the status code depending on how your application ran. You can see 200 okay, 201 created, 22, 300, 400 if you have a bad request, 401 and the like. So I know you must have witnessed maybe when you try to get to a web application and it's showing on your screen 404 and the likes. Let me try and stop this one. Let's run the previous one just to drive home the point. You can see it's still serving on this URL. So anybody on my network can actually connect to my application. So it said not found. And if you check the status code, the status code is showing 404. It's showing 404 as against 202. And if you check 404, it's not found. 404 is not found. So if I keep on hitting the server, it's saying I can't find it here. So and if we go and check what 404 means, it says not found. So you can the request resource could not be found, but maybe available. Those are status codes. So one more example before we proceed further. So we have a third application, still this follows the same procedure. We initialize our Flask, we import our Flask, we initialize the application, then we create a route for it, and then we use methods to get. But in this case, we are returning something to the web browser. So I run this application, you can see hello world, my first Python web application. So that's Python for you. We'll engage in more complex Python very, very soon. So I don't know whether we have any questions so far before I go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to know for all this application we're running, we're running it from the source code. Is that normally how I mean, like if you deploy it, does the Visual Studio generate like executable for you to actually give out for this kind of application? so that to protect, from people just going to change or make a mistake with the source code itself? How does it work?
So if you are trying to deploy, you have to add a lot of security features into your code. For Python, people will say it's one of the most unsecured programming language, but how it works is it's basically your Python file and the ancillary files that you work with.
Okay.
So yes, that's how it works with. I have the full application, just wrap everything, and then you would take it to wherever you want to play it, and it's going to work for you.
Okay, that's it.
So want to use a bit of CSS and HTML to just probably get a bit more from our Python. So I open this folder and practical web application, select folder. Okay. So you know all we've been doing, we've been displaying things on our web application. We've actually not received input from our web application. So let's assume we have still a Flask application. In this case, we just want to create a simple Python form that allows users to actually fill in something, and with what they fill in, we can actually have a record of it. So this is just a simple application, and in this case, we are using an HTML template as against just using strings and JSONifying it. We are using HTML template, and you can look at the HTML template, just very basic. So this is an HTML code, it's not a Python code. You can open the HTML on your browser as a static page. Sorry, so let's go to web. So templates, I can open home. You can see it's just a simple form. So this is just the HTML file. So I want to interact with this HTML file using Python. So I go to my Flask code. I go to my Flask code. I want to, so this application, it uses the post request to take in value of name and email from an HTML template. So if I run the code, Python app.py, so it's currently running. Let me comment this first. I don't want to put it here. Ctrl S, Ctrl C. Let me run the code again. Okay. So it's currently running. Click on the link. So it creates a simple Python form for me. Now I told my application that please, once anybody hits the form and clicks on submit, print out the name of the person and the email of the person on command line. So I can use else thing. I can use my email. And I can click submit. You can see on the command line, it's printing out the name and the email. I can go again. The app is still functional. Remy@gmail.com. And I can click on submit. You can see the maybe request was successful and it printed it out. I can keep on going over and over again. So with this simple form, now we've learned with all of the basics we've learned in Python. You can actually save these inputs from the user and save them somewhere in a document. So I decided to tinker with the code a bit, and I created a function called createFile, and the createFile function, it's in a module called create. So let me comment this. Let's see the file create function. So the file create function is here. It just basically takes the name and the email and then outputs it to an output file. And that output file just has the name, space, and the email. And this function can be called, it's a function, so it can be called over and over again. And I'm using the append function, so we're not removing our previous values, we are just appending to the values. So let's go back to our Python file, and then let's run the code. So in this case, we are not printing anymore. We are trying to create a file. So I issue a name. So before I click here, you can just take a look. There are no text files here. Once I click on submit, you see it creates an output file. And if I open the output file, you can see everything and the email. Let me close this file. Let me enter another one, see it's another person filling the form, James. And James@gmail.com. Go back into the output file. You can see James@gmail.com. You can keep on doing it, and it's going to continue. Say you have a web application and people are to fill in details. This basically is just a simple web form. So I don't know whether we have any questions so far. Any question so far? Do we have any questions so far? Okay. So without any much ado, I think we have basically covered a lot of things in this course. This was short. We used it as to try and look at different parts of Python, which is not possible. The essence of this program was just to point us in the direction of Python, to talk about some of the use cases. And we didn't even scratch the surface. Like I said, the most important thing in Python, the most powerful thing in Python, it's the libraries that it has. Python has an extensive library for machine learning, library for web application, library for GUI. So depending on the paths you are on, you would see a need for Python. We learned
sorry. Sorry, if, for example, I am constantly focusing on maybe the web apps library. What's
Yes.
the core advantage between a Python or a PHP?
Okay, awesome. So, you know, I think PHP is majorly for PHP, JavaScript. They are more tending towards the front end, if I'm not
No,
mistaken.
no.
But I don't know.
PHP is backend, not JavaScript. I mean
Backend
PHP. I don't mean
PHP.
JavaScript. I mean PHP. PHP is backend, purely backend, and has a lot of library.
Yeah, I know PHP is quite important with web
Yeah.
development, quite important web development. But I think Python, since it has use case that is versatile across different spheres, I think that was one of the big use cases. But I know even in web development, people also use PHP but Python, because of versatility, I think that's what makes it trumps other programs, because you can use Python for other things aside
Yeah.
from backend development. So I would say versatility, nothing more. Versatility.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. So any other question? Just before we leave, and I just want to expose us to some other areas. So far been writing all our codes using our code editor. You can also write Python codes using notebooks for people who eventually will go into, okay, I see a hand up. You can speak, please.
Hello, please, I have a question or more like a request. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Austin, are you there?
Oh, I can hear you. Sorry, I didn't know I was muted. I can hear you. Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
someone.
Yes, I'm the one raising my hand. Sorry, I'm sure you can hear the background noise. Sorry, I'm locked somewhere. Please, is it possible to get the recording for Thursday, because I missed out Thursday?
Okay. I don't know. SPE?
Can I take that?
Yes.
Yes. The recording will be made available.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll likely post it on YouTube. So once that is done, we'll circulate the link to all participants.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So still on next steps, we've used the code editor. You can also use notebooks. And one very popular notebook is the Jupyter Notebook. And you can get Jupyter Notebook on Anaconda. It's also a place where you can also write your Python codes. It runs in the form of in your browser. You can do Python 3 and all of the things we've been doing with our code editor. You can also do them here. Say an expression of 3 plus 4. You run the code, it gives you your value. You can print 4 greater than 3, it will give you the value. You can write a full function, say a function that checks if an input is a particular value and prints an output. So let's say function verify. It takes in the name, and if name is equal to, let's say, else thing, you can tell it to print yes, else, let's say print no. And then we return the function. So I can run this function, nothing will show until I call the function. So let's see verify. Verify. Let's say I put name Elston. So these particular notebooks, they are very, very useful for data scientists because basically you can evaluate your expressions and you can see your codes, the output in real time. You can plot beautiful graphs here depending on the models you are using. So on the next steps, this is just the surface. Python is wide. I would recommend a book. It's called Automating the Boring Stuff. So it just gives you practical, real-world projects to work on, like automating your task in Excel, creating a simple game with Python. So you see all of these building blocks we've learned, from expressions to flow conditionals to your loops, are all very important when creating even bigger applications. Bigger applications are not far from the moon. They are still your building blocks that make bigger applications. So at this juncture, I would be dropping the curtain. I don't know whether there's still any message from SPE.
Elston, what did you say? Come again. I didn't get that.
At this point, I'll be dropping the curtain. I don't know whether there's still any other business from SPE.
All right. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Elston. It's been a wonderful ride. So I just want to clarify or ask. So